there's an excuse that consultants might also come up with that, my battery will run out of power, my laptop will just not work, which is when another partner ended up providing him with another laptop. So he was traveling with two laptops. That you don't worry, we've got you. You can work. You can absolutely work. So yeah.
So from what I understand now is that you guys are making anywhere between 60 to 70 lakhs per annum as per what you guys just said, right?
Yeah, but we're paying a lot of taxes. Yeah. You should really account for that.
Hi everyone, welcome to Conversation with Kushal once again. Today we have two young chaps who are working in management consulting companies, and today we are going to discuss everything about life of a management consultant, salary ranges that these guys are getting, and how typically, like, what is the exposure which is given to both of them. So welcome Vatsal and Apurva. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. It's a huge honor to host you today.
No, pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
Perfect. So maybe why don't you start introducing yourself first, and then we'll take the further questions ahead.
Sure. Hey, I'm Vatsal. I'm a chartered accountant by profession. Cleared in May of 2017 and been working with BCG since then. So about 5 years, more than 5 years actually, of management consulting. Was with Ernst & Young before that during my articleship. Roughly that's it.
Got it. Guys, I think one thing which I'd like to mention here, right? So he was my buddy in BCG. So buddies basically जब तुम लोग interviews देने जाते हो ऐसे companies में, there's a concept of buddy where you are trained by these people for 1 or 2 months depending on the timeline, and they train you कि तुम लोग interview में कैसे तैयारी करोगे और क्या answers देने वगैरह. So I had an amazing experience, although I couldn't get in, but I have a guilt कि इसने मेरे पे इतनी मेहनत की थी और मैं नहीं जा पाया. So I always have that guilt at the end of the day. So I'm sorry for that कि मैं जा नहीं पाया BCG में, but yeah, I think I just wanted to bring that out.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, as long as you gave your best, that's all that matters.
Perfect. Apurva, why don't you introduce yourself?
Awesome. Hey, I'm Apurva. I'm a 2016 Narsi Monji grad and I pursued actuarial science along with it. I cleared 10 actuarial exams. Started off as an actuarial consultant before deciding that that's too technical a role for me and I probably want to do big picture stuff. Happened to find a role with McKinsey Knowledge Center in their healthcare analytics division, which is their expert consulting wing. Worked there for roughly about a year and a half, which is when I ended up deciding that yes, consulting is what I want to really pursue. Front-end consulting is something I would like to go for. Tried for a couple of roles, ended up bumping into something at Alvarez and Marsal as a contractual consultant. Did a 4-month stint with them and then joined full-time. So that was a 2.5-year stint where I did strategy and diligence across consumer tech, healthcare, retail, etc. Which is when I ended up finding another opportunity with Bain. I just recently quit my stint with Bain and I am trying to pursue my entrepreneurial dreams. So let's see where that goes.
Got it. All the best for your entrepreneurial journey as well. I'm sure like you're going to kill it. And if you need any consultancy, you can go back to Bain once again because that is something which is always there at the back of the mind.
I hope so. Yeah.
Perfect, guys. So let's discuss about everything. Let's discuss everything about management consulting here. So first things first. People want to understand like what exactly is a role of a management consultant and how does a typical day in the life of a management consultant look like. So if you guys, maybe Vatsal, you can go first and Apo, you can just chip in wherever you want.
Absolutely.
Sure. So at a very high level, what management consultants do is essentially we solve problems and help clients achieve some of their objectives. So those objectives can range from improving their operations and therefore getting a higher profit or reducing cost, or that's one end of the spectrum. The other end would be more in terms of how do you pursue your strategy going forward and what your strategy should be as an organization. So that's the other end of the spectrum, and whatever comes in between those two ranges is everything that comes under our domain. So my first experience was helping a locks manufacturer improve their profitability.
Right.
So that is more on the operation side.
I remember this was the case he had given to me while my interview preparation.
Yeah, so that is one. Another project that I did was more in terms of how could a foreign retail chain enter into India if they wanted to. So that's more of an entry strategy. So that's to say in future if you have to come into India, what kind of offering do you need, what kind of store do you need to build, so on and so forth. So these are the two more traditional kind of categories of work that we do. There are also things around helping after integration. So say two companies are merging. how does the resultant company decide what should stay, what should go, and implementing that on the ground up until day one, or few months after day one. So that is also where we help. And one other more niche, so to say, is on the commercial diligence side. So say if a company wants to raise funding, they would approach some investors. Now the investors would want to know how is this company doing operationally and in the space it operates in. So then we would come in and bring in our expertise, do the diligence, as in where does it stand in the market, what market share, how do we see it growing competition wise, so on and so forth. And that is where we kind of submit our report to the investor. So these are, I mean, at the high level, this is the work that we kind of do.
Yeah. No, I think largely covered most of the things that consultants do is a part of this. Just on the diligences front, usually a consulting firm would be roped in for commercial or operational due diligence. There is the other angle of financial due diligence, which is valuing the company, how much equity should we shell out, what's the valuation, what's the right number that the investor should go in with, how should he negotiate. And we are working for the buy side investors, right? Our clients are private equity investors and venture capital firms. It's not the firm that's raising money. More often than not, we also do sell side work, but that's like minuscule amount of work of what consulting firms do. But largely what consulting firms do is diligence work for buy side, private equity and venture capital.
Can you just briefly explain everyone what exactly is buy side versus sell side?
Absolutely. So buy side here typically refers to firms which want to invest themselves into a company. It could either be a venture capital fund looking for small ticket sizes ranging from anywhere between 1 million to 50 million, $100 million checks, or a private equity firm which does large deals, typically more than 100, 200 million deals, sometimes buyout deals, which are also $1 billion deals, right? So large deals. Those are usually your buy side clients. Sell side clients are investment banking firms, which typically assist the firms who are raising money, raise the money. Right? So typically they do an advisory job with the firms who are raising the money. That's sell side work.
Got it.
As consultants, the sell side work that we do, let's say we are working for a private equity firm, let's say Temasek, right? Temasek has a portfolio company and Temasek wants to get out of that portfolio company, right? It's done its 5-year stint with them. It will come to us, ask us to assist them find a suitable buyer, right? So that's when we are doing a sell side work for Temasek, that okay, now Temasek has been invested for 5 years, now wants to exit and wants to find another buyer for the stake it wants to get out. That's when it becomes a sell side work for it, but that's again like very small.
Got it. Yeah. Makes sense.
So to add to his point, one is the private equity firms wanting to exit is one sell side. The other is if say a good startup is coming up or a good company, they want to raise money themselves. Yeah. So they might also kind of bring us in, tell us that please help us form a story, a good story, this is our strategy, so on and so forth, so that we can get investors in. So in that case, we call it a vendor due diligence. Yeah. So that is essentially the company who is raising the money would sponsor their own diligence, and we would kind of give a report to them, and then they would use it with their investors. So roughly that.
And again, diligences are not restricted to buy-side clients only. There are also corporate diligences like large companies. You must have recently heard of GCPL, Godrej Consumer, buying Raymond, right? Yeah. It's a corporate that's buying another corporate, right? So that's also something that a consulting firm would assist clients.
Got it. Makes sense. And इसमें कितना time जाता होगा? Like, what is the typical duration in a diligence phase? Because I was talking to Vatsal last weekend and he was like, यार कुशल diligence चल रहा है अभी तो मेरी तो लगी पड़ी है तो मैं तो रात को 11 बजे तेरे से बात करूँगा या तो weekend पे बात करूँगा या तो next month बात करूँगा. So how are the typical working hours?
So it's 3 bad weeks, and of course I mean Vatsal, it's raw for him. Vatsal can probably Vatsal can share some of his thoughts out, but it's 3 to 4. Usually more often than not, it's 3 to 4 weeks of high intense work. Work weeks are anywhere between 80 to 100 hour work weeks per se. More often than not, you're working over the weekends, but sometimes you're lucky and you don't. With that said, diligence is just one part of the entire investment cycle. Investment cycle can range anywhere between 9 to 12 months or 6 to 9 months, right? A large part of it is driven by the buy side and sell side firms. But consultants usually pitch in this 1 month critical period where the buy side firm or a private equity firm, venture capital firm has decided that yes, it wants to go ahead with this asset and just wants another vendor to look at it that yes, are we making the right decision or not? Please advise us.
Got it.
So this is like the latter part of the deal cycle is when consultants usually come in. And
Yeah, so roughly well covered. So if it's a full diligence, essentially it goes to 4 weeks, maybe 1 or 2 weeks over that, depending on the scope to be covered, etc. Versus that, if it's a smaller diligence or say it's a refresh of some work we did earlier, that could be a little less than 4 weeks. So the one I did very recently was about 2.5 weeks. So I mean, lesser the weeks, tougher, as in more intense the work. Because
So what kind of work is this exactly? Like 2 हफ्ते में या 2.5 हफ्ते में काम क्या होता है exactly, and what is the type of work? What, like, do you have to get data? Do you have to vouch for it, or what exactly is the work you have to do in those 2.5
so
weeks?
let me explain what the 4 weeks wala diligence would
And if
would
you can
kind of
give
look
with some
like.
example, of course,
Yeah.
without disclosing any names, but
Yeah.
if you can just give some example, that'll be helpful.
Sure. So say there is a company which wants money, and that company operates in the two-wheeler electric vehicle space, right? Now we've been brought in to diligence the company. Roughly, as in majority of the times, the modules that are to be covered would be sizing of the market, as in what is the relevant market for that company. Is it big enough? Is it going to grow significantly in the future? So that is one part of the diligence that has to happen. The second would be more in terms of competition and market structure. Say in the market that we kind of defined that okay, this big is the market now. Who are the players there? Who has the kind of right to win, so to say, and whether this company will be able to capture share, how well it will be able to do. So a second kind of big block. Third is more on the operational side, on the cost side of the company, and on the business plan essentially. So say over the next 5 years, 7 years, where does the company itself feel that they'll get to, and our view of what they are saying, whether we believe that they'll get to that or not. So there'll be one view that the management will say, okay, we think we'll go from X to 3X in so many years, and we'll go from profitability 0% to 15, 20%, whatever. So we would come in, we would see what their assumptions are, we would validate it with what happened in the market currently. What do we see happening in the market based on what we know about the market using our experience? And then we come up with our own kind of version that okay, management is saying 0 to 3x, but we believe it will be 0 to 2x only. So something like that. And then similar view on profitability on individual cost heads, depending on what the scope is.
Right.
So broadly, these three are definitely there on a proper full diligence. There can be additional modules on, say, there could be some around primary survey. So essentially, like I said, if it's a two-wheeler electric vehicle player, we would kind of go and conduct a survey amongst two-wheeler buyers. We would ask them things like, okay, are you considering buying an electric vehicle? What are your reasons? Which brands would you buy? Etc. etc. Now that gives more of a customer feedback to them. That is one. The second would be we would do channel interviews. We would go to their showrooms, different brand showrooms, and we would talk to those dealers. Okay, what is the feedback of the product that you're hearing? How do you sell your product? What are the key buying factors that the customer says, and how do you convince that customer? So that is another kind of primary angle. Then there could be a regulatory piece as well. Like if it's a space where there's some uncertainty on regulations, whether this will be allowed, not allowed. So then we kind of try to figure out based on what the government is saying, maybe some industry conversations, and try to get a sense of where the market will move. Obviously, no one really knows until the regulation comes in, but at least some better comfort than a normal common man would know. Yeah, broadly, this is how these are the things that we kind of cover over 4 weeks. Now, usually the way it goes is market sizing happens first, competition happens first, and business plan and everything is more of a culmination of everything into one single module, right? So market is becoming X to 3X, but share will become X to 1.5X. Now, why? So the factors will come from the work we did on competition. So business plan is essentially only towards the end after the initial modules are covered. So roughly, I mean, this is the broad structure. In case of a smaller diligence, the investor really defines what really do they need us to cover. So maybe market is there, so then maybe competition might not be there, or business plan might not be there. Or if business plan is there, then they would say we are convinced about the market, just focus on the cost side of things. So it could work either way depending on the situation.
Right. So इसमें I assume that it will be what, maybe 14, 16 hours day kind of a working schedule, right?
If you're lucky.
So 14, 16 is less.
It's average.
Oh
I
my
would say.
God.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
in my
average.
diligences that I've done, I've been doing this for what, 9 months last year, and then another month this year is what I've done. So roughly it has been say 9 a.m. to 11:30, 12ish in the night. That is the whole day that you're working. Now you can take out say half an hour, 1 hour to have meals, but you kind of have to keep working almost all through. So I think that is your that's what 15 hours. Yeah. So
Got it.
yeah.
Very, very intense. I think that's the probably the dark side. But
So on that, it really depends on the person, right? So what you get in terms of pro
Yeah,
of
exactly.
doing this is you get a end-to-end view over a company. Like, why are we saying what we are saying? Why is this a good asset or why is this a bad asset? This you typically will not get on a say a Hindustan Unilever kind of level company, because you will never look at it in this way. On how big is it, how big is the market, how well is it doing. You will never look at it that. It will more just be on a that you need to do a strategy for foods portfolio of Hindustan Unilever. So you are just looking at one small part of that and doing a strategy for that.
Right.
So this versus that is like having a holistic view on the asset. That is one. The second is because it is so intense and fast paced, you get to see a lot of different industries in a very short period of time. So say I've seen EV two wheelers, I've seen fintech, personal lending, I've seen there was this advertising tech asset that I did. So I've seen like 4 or 5 different industries over a course of 1 year. So that is like I've never seen that kind of a exposure learning in any other function or say strategy or operation. So I mean, yes, there are cons, which is more intensity, back-to-back work,
But
and
that gets compensated by the pros. So Apurva, like just if you can add in here, right? So it's like, what are some of the pros, or maybe what are some of the skills that consulting has taught you, or how has that entire exposure of working at companies like McKinsey and Bain shaped your personality?
I think multiple things. Consulting has been too kind to me. I don't think that I was a professional at any given point of time who thought that yes, consulting is the end game for me. Consulting has always been figuring it out eventually that yes, this is what I probably want to do, but that's not something that I thought of 5-7 years ago that yes, consulting is the only thing that I want to do, right? I think over time, the more I've interacted with consultants, the more I've worked with consultants, multiple things that I've learned, right? One of the things that Vatsal just shared, that the knack to understand an asset and industry very, very, very quickly is something that consulting has taught me. Now, if I meet someone right now, and if someone tells me that they're working in some random industry, right? I don't know, could be anything.
Agri, maybe.
Maybe agri. It's no longer random, but yeah, maybe
actually,
agri,
it's not
right? I would be able to understand the matrix, the drivers, the industry much faster than I would have if I was in some other more niche industries, right? If I would have probably continued with my actuarial journey. The professional that I would have been versus the professional I am in terms of grasping other industries quicker is definitely something that consulting has taught me. I like to think I was always an introvert. I know the world really supports the idea of yes, all people equal, and yes, introverts are equal to extroverts, but I do think that world wants you to be an extrovert at some level, and that is essential for you to progress in life to an extent. I mean, it's not the driver, but it's one of the impediments. Consulting has been that. Sometimes you're just forced to talk to people, sometimes you're just forced to be in situations where you're driving things. One of the things that I learned in one of my trainings at Bain was that you always have to be the person who gets the most spotlight in a room. Like wherever you are, you have to own the room. And that's a burden to an extent, but that's also the reality of the situation, right? That as consultants, you're expected to be those people. And that helps.
I think you're doing it in this room. Probably you're owning the limelight for sure. People can write in the comment section who's owning the limelight amongst the three of us.
I hope Bain is proud of me, but Bain is ex, so...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think from more from a soft skill perspective, consulting is definitely something that has taught me this. I think the major driver for me moving on from being a consultant to trying to be a founder, maybe a failed founder, is consulting. Again, it's consulting that has given me the confidence, the knowledge, the path, the vision to go in the direction that I want to do. So I think three key things are these. I mean, lots of ancillary benefits, but these three I would definitely highlight.
What are some of the myths which you guys would want to demystify about management consulting? Like a lot of people have these myths about management consulting. Maybe if it's a myth or no, you can just answer. But ऐसे होता है सबको लगता है यार consultants की life इतनी lavish होती है, हमेशा 5-star hotels में stay होता है, they have to travel every week, अलग-अलग cities, अलग-अलग countries में जाने का मौका मिलता है, etc. etc. If you can just throw some light here, maybe the highlights and the lowlights of consulting.
So I would say that while it might be a myth, but it is true to an extent that yes, these things are there. There is travel for sure. If you want to travel, this is the profession you want to be in. But be mindful that you might not get a lot of time to do the things that you want to do while you're traveling. Essentially, you're traveling to work. So yes, there is travel, but there's also work that needs to be done. So
while travel,
I mean, while travel, as in you may not work on the flight, but when you're in a different city, you're broadly working there. So the life here is you fly in on Monday morning, you go straight to office, the client place. You work through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. In some cases, you fly back on Thursday to your home city. Or in some case, you fly back on Friday evening to your home city, right? Now, these are all weekdays. If you're fortunate enough, you can get, say, 1-2 odd hours in the evening on the weekdays. But if it's a very intense project, you're most probably not going to have those. You'll much rather use that to sleep off and, catch up on your, say, maybe health goals or exercise, etc. If you kind of want to explore that city, most often you'll have to kind of stay over on the weekend. So yeah, if that is doable for you, that is what you like, then yes, this is a great perk for traveling, because essentially your travel is sponsored by the company. So
and I assume it's business class.
Not really, always.
Not really. Yeah. That's a myth. We should definitely bust. No.
Okay.
No, it's not business class until you kind of become managing partner. And
you have to travel like poor people in economy. Sometimes it's like a 17-hour flight. You're in economy class.
But what you do get is a lot of travel points. So you can use those to kind of get upgrades.
Right.
But you don't get business class by default.
Right.
And just to add to Vatsal, right, the first thing that he said, that you have to work while you're traveling. A very interesting piece in one of my journeys, one of my consulting firms that I've worked for. I've seen someone who was traveling to the interiors of the country, like somewhere in Jharkhand, like there was a coal mine, there was a steel plant where they were working. Now the travel time sometimes exceeds so much, like you're traveling during the weekdays and the travel time is so high that you can't afford to not work. Now if the travel time is 10 to 12 hours, there's an excuse that consultants might also come up with that, my battery will run out of power, my laptop will just not work. Which is when another partner ended up providing him with another laptop. So he was traveling with 2 laptops. Said, you don't worry, we've got you. You can work. You can absolutely work. So yeah, even this happens. Like you have to work. It's a pain to work while traveling. For some people, it's not easy, but you have to work. Yeah.
Right.
and also I would say there's 2 types of travel. One is travel from where you are based out to a metro city in India. So think of Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Kolkata, places like these. Versus that, the other kind of travel is more in the interiors, like he mentioned. So I was on a travel case after COVID, and the plant of the client was situated near Dwarka in Gujarat. So it was about 30-40 minutes from Dwarka. And it's broadly a township which is supported by that one particular plant. Like half the town works in that plant, and the other half is kind of doing the supporting stuff, schools, retail shops, etc. etc. So during that, I mean, the infrastructure that you might want, or beyond the point, there's not much you can do there, because it's the type of place that not many people visit unless they have to go to that plant. So the latter you might feel that it's very painful, but yeah, those still exist. So those kind of cases also exist. So yeah, if you're coming in for travel, be mindful that both of these things
that
are
you're not
possible.
just traveling to fancy locations, you're also traveling to really remote
No,
towns.
but about these cases, right? So are you given an option in terms of which case do you want to work in, or you're just given कि हाँ तुमको ये case पे काम करना है अभी अगले 6 महीने? How does that happen?
So for someone who's just joining, they don't really kind of have that much of a choice, because the firm doesn't know what kind of a performer that person is, etc. You just have your incoming resume. Whatever projects need people, they would kind of decide between whoever they want from among the new people coming in. But once you've done, say, one project, whatever duration that is, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, then when you're getting unstaffed and going to a new one, at least in my experience, we kind of have an internal system where both sides, even the project management and people like us, have the option to give their preferences. So I can give them a preference saying I want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 case, and others are lower preference for me. On the other side, each of the case managements, as in partners, managers on that case, will give a preference on, okay, we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on our case. Then there is a central team that does the mix and match, and that is how cases get assigned. So if what you've put as high preference, it also reflects in what a manager is putting, then yeah, it's a win-win for both. You get on there, but not always. That doesn't always happen. So then there is some kind of a negotiation, some kind of thinking and back and forth. But yeah, then it's more of a conversation that, okay, while this is low preference for you, we really want you. We think you will gain so and so skills on the project which will help you going forward. So then it's on me to whether agree to that, not agree to that. And yeah, there are also other trade-offs that I need to consider, that I might stay unstaffed for a prolonged time. So I don't even want that ideally, because then that doesn't look great while I'm evaluated on my performance.
Okay.
So there are these trade-offs you need to keep in mind. But yeah, it's not that they tell you need to go here. You have a say as a consultant, and then it can work out the way it has to.
Makes sense. This is helpful. What are some of the lavish hotels you guys have stayed in during your stint at BCG and Bain?
So
I remember you were when I was interviewing at BCG, I think you were in Delhi, right? Monday to Thursday.
So yeah, I mean, usually it's the Marriott Bonvoy hotels that we go to. So think of Westin, Marriott, Le Méridien in Gurgaon. Same thing here, or it could be Taj, Oberoi, even Trident for that matter. Roughly, these are the hotels you stay in because they are closer to the offices.
That's not the reason.
I mean, yeah, obviously. But so I was comparing this to, say, more kind of lavish properties where you go to for outings. So outings, for example, I went to Lonavala. There's this place called the Machan. So we stayed there for a weekend. So these kind of
offsites.
These are offsites. Yeah, these are offsites. But these are case team offsites. They're not company-wide offsites.
Okay.
Company-wide offsites still happen on top of this.
Okay.
So
how is that different from this? This is called as CTO, right?
CTO, case team offsite.
Case team offsite. Yeah. Where your case, like whoever
the working
on
team,
that case,
you're working.
The working team, from partner to like the lowest kind of, say, intern or analyst, everyone is invited to that. and everyone can bring their significant others along with them, and that one weekend is full sponsored by
Significant others as in plus ones, like
Yeah, plus
It could
spouse
also be your
or-
girlfriend. It could.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Not necessarily your
There's-
spouse. It could
Oh,
also be your
okay.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Got it. And if that guy's married, then anyone apart from wife?
That is their call.
Just kidding. Yeah, just kidding. So tell me the difference between CTO and the main offsite which is there of the company, and what is the frequency of these things?
So the company offsite happens once a year.
Okay.
Broadly.
And where would these be typically?
For BCG, it happens in Goa.
For Bain?
Bain, last year it was Abu Dhabi.
Oh,
Yeah.
Goa versus Abu Dhabi.
You gotta choose, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then these case team offsites are roughly say once in 6 months.
Okay.
If your case is say a 1 year long case, you might have one in the first 3 months, one at the end of the case. So you can have two. Versus if your case is a short one, 3-month case, then probably it will get clubbed with another 3-month case that has the same leadership, and though you will go together.
And this
But
would
there's
be
no really there's no really boundary on where you can go.
Okay.
Right? You have a budget.
Yeah.
Okay, got
You
it.
have a set budget. You go wherever you want with it.
Yeah.
And
I know
this would be
people-
for a weekend?
Yeah.
More often
Roughly
than not,
Friday
yeah.
to
More often
Sunday.
than not.
Okay, got it. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, no. I know people who've also used their CTE, CTO. It's called CTE in Bain.
So what is CTE?
Case team events.
Events, okay.
Yeah. Outings versus events. That's it. I know people at Bain who've gone to JW Mussoorie. It's a beautiful property, and just with their CTE budget, like they've gone there for the weekend, they've flown back, they had lots of parties there, so it works out. Lots of Marriott Bonvoy scams that also take place.
Yeah.
All of the travel that you do, you get points against it, right? So there are people who completely use just their points and miles to sponsor their honeymoons, right? They go to Maldives for a week and then they don't pay a single penny for flights and
Oh, is it?
stay, right? And they stay at really fancy hotels, right? Really, really fancy hotels.
Wow.
I myself, so with the points that I got from, and I think the most amount of points I got from McKinsey because it was US travel. So you get a lot more points
Yeah.
because you spend more there. The hotels in New York are like $400-500 hotels versus it's $10,000-15,000 here, right? So
$400-500 per night?
per night, yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's super expensive.
My God.
Yeah.
Which kind of hotels like are these?
All hotels, generally
Okay.
Marriott Bonvoy hotels. So I was staying in Westin, which was again 400.
Okay.
Even if you stay on Times Square,
Yeah.
it's again like $400-450.
Got it. And this would be which year? Like I'm
This
just trying
was
to compare in
2018.
rupee terms.
2018.
So it'll be around 25,000-30,000 per night.
30,000, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's only more expensive now for sure. It hasn't come down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Got it.
So you get points, and then the points I made, then I made a trip to W in Goa. Again, a fancy. Like I can't afford that myself. I'm not going to pay for it, but yeah, it's these travels that really help.
This is super fun actually.
So I remember on one of the case team offsites where we went, I think we went to Alibag and we'd booked a villa and full lavish thing. At the end of it, there was some budget left. So people were deciding, okay, what do we do with this budget? So we hired an Audi to come from Alibag to Mumbai.
Oh God.
We should really
Like, we
censor
had
some
to-
of this.
We really had to order a lot of cars, or it could have been even higher.
Oh God.
So yeah.
This is super fun. I now regret that BCG में तो नहीं हुआ. I think I should have had applied in Bain or
Yeah.
McKinsey. But ठीक है, I think there's something else planned in my destiny.
I think you can afford it yourself.
No.
You don't really
Not as of now. Maybe hopefully in the future. But let's see. Let's talk about the compensation, about the salary which a consultant gets. I think this is something which a lot of people would want to hear as well.
Yeah.
And I had recently made a reel on this topic that one of my friends was telling me that the growth in these industries is, in this industry specifically in consulting, is very high as compared to other industries. Like the salary range or the starting package would be similar. For example, just to give you some context, we are chartered accountants. So rank holders, when I was giving my interview at BCG Bain, McKinsey, I didn't give in Bain and McKinsey, but the average range was around 16 lakhs to 18 lakhs per annum for a person who is just a CA ranker and getting into these companies, which is similar to the package which we are getting at companies like ABG, ITC, Marico and HUL are in fact higher as compared to these companies. But what I've noticed is that BCG, McKinsey, Bain, or specifically consulting industry, the growth rate, the percentage increment is much higher. And if you get a promotion, that percentage goes like it goes exorbitant as well as compared to other industries. If you can just throw some light in terms of what are the ranges or what are the compensation numbers which people can expect, that'll be super helpful.
Yeah.
Any one of you?
I can start. So
Because
I
you
mean,
have quit your job, so I think you will be more
no, I
comfortable.
mean, again, range bound numbers, but yeah, you're right. I think the starting ranges are very similar, especially for a CA fresher. So the starting positions are different. You can either be an undergrad, so as a chartered accountant, you will be an undergrad.
Right.
But there are also postgrads, like people coming in from IIMs and all the top 10 MBA colleges will be coming in at a different position. So an undergrad will be in a similarish range. Someone who joins as a fresher from an MBA college will make anywhere between like 25 to 30 lakhs, right? That will be sort of what you start off with. An undergrad will probably take 3 years to reach a first year consultant, right? Which is when you're like a work stream lead, where you're owning a work stream and driving it independently. While a postgrad will take 2 years to reach a position where you will make anywhere between 45 to 50 lakhs fixed, and then of course variable is dependent upon your performance.
But what is the typical variable range?
It's 20 to 40% more often than not.
Got it.
It goes high for some. I think BCG McKinsey is really high for. Goes
kind
up
of
to I think
go
60
to
70%.
50, 60% also, but those have to be like really good performers.
Yeah, you have to be exceptional to reach there. I think that is when the bump really starts to happen. The first year consultant, and then you make manager. Like it almost becomes like 2x, right?
Yeah.
You almost become 2x when you're a manager. As a first year associate partner ish, like the principal or associate partner will be anywhere between another 1.5 to 2x from there.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then as a partner, the interesting thing is it's then completely up to you, right? The amount of business that you get in, it's revenue sharing.
Okay.
So it's not really fixed pay. I mean, your fixed will probably be very less than a crore maybe. But your variable component goes really high. That the amount of cases that you bring, and these are all really expensive projects, right? To give you an example, McKinsey, BCG, Bain would charge anywhere between 2 to 3 crores a month for a 4 to 5 member team for a project. Right? That's the kind of fees you're charging, and you have variable on that. Right? You have a percentage on that. So as a partner, you can even make 3 to 4 crores. You can even make like 8 to 10 crores. Like it's completely up to you how many connections you have, how much business can you bring in, because at that point, execution is important, but business development is much more important than it is. So it's like this sort of a lean exponential curve.
Got it. Vatsal, like.
So yeah, broadly agreed to him, but more than in terms of money, you're also getting more exposure as at a short period versus say some other industry. So you would become say project manager from a CA undergrad in say 5 years.
What's the hierarchy? Like if you can just help everyone understand.
Sure.
How
if you come in as an undergrad, which is for engineers or CAs, you typically join as associate, and these are people who do not have consulting experience. As in management consulting experience, right? So you join in as associate, you do 2 years at associate, then you directly go to second year of senior associate if you get promoted. So
what is second year as in?
So business school students, post-grad students, they come in as senior associate, but they come in as senior associate first year.
Okay.
Right?
SA1 which you call
SA1, yeah.
Okay.
So they would take 1 year to get to SA2, while undergrads would take 2 years to get to SA2.
Got it.
So that 1 year is what the business school kind of accounts for.
Got it.
So once you're there, then it's the same hierarchy for everyone. After SA2, 1 year at SA2, you become a consultant. 2 years at consultant, you become a project manager. Then it broadly depends on your performance as well after this. So it could range from 2 to 3 years for each promotion that comes, but it's broadly project manager, principal, partner, managing partner and director, and then senior partner. So this is broadly the hierarchy after that, and there's no fixed timeline, but roughly 2 to 3 years, or as you go senior, it could go to 3 to 4 years as well.
Got it.
Bain has a slightly different model in terms of the hierarchies. So you start as JC1, which is an SA1 equivalent, junior consultant. Okay. It's a first year junior consultant, which is the position you get after your business school or postgrad. So 2 years of that, then 2 years of consultant. Then you automatically, subject to performance, make it to manager. right? So that's not really a promotion, that's a designation shift, because Bain works in a way where it's a more apprenticeship model. So it wants you to ease into the role, which is when 2 years of consultant, if you're doing fine, you make it to manager automatically. If you perform as a manager, you make it to senior manager, which is similar to what a project leader at BCG is. Then another 2.5 years to associate partner, then again 2 to 3 years to partner. But yeah, I mean, a partner would more often than not be similar to an MDP at BCG. So you catch up, but the ways of making it to the next level at Bain and BCG are slightly different.
Got it. And McKinsey also similar
It's the
hierarchy?
fastest, I think. McKinsey is the fastest. It's 2 years between each.
Okay.
So
And-
you make it to partner in 8 years. BCG Bain
wow.
takes 9 to 10 years.
And they're also called like similar designations at McKinsey?
No, it's so you start as a junior associate, which is a JC at Bain and SA at BCG equivalent.
confusing.
It's very confusing.
It's very confusing, yeah.
Then you make it to associate, which is consultant at both Bain and BCG. Then you make it to engagement manager, which is project leader and senior manager.
Which you guys are right now? No.
No, we're consultants.
We're consultants.
You are even like...
No,
No, we're consultants.
minus.
We're one level.
Achha, one level.
Still to go there.
Okay, okay, got it. Sorry.
Yeah. So engagement manager, project leader, and senior manager.
Okay.
McKinsey BCG Bain. Then associate partner, principal associate partner, again McKinsey BCG Bain.
Okay.
Then partner. Partner MDP partner.
Yeah, I'll give my editor one piece of advice कि इसको Excel sheet बना Excel
So
sheet
much
में
easier.
McKinsey BCG Bain डाल and ये जो बोल रहे एक एक करके दिखा
much
दे वहाँ
easier.
पे. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that
That'll be
visual
easier, yeah.
representation would be much better.
Yeah.
So from what I understand now is that you guys are making anywhere between 60 to 70 lakhs per annum as per what you guys just said, right?
Yeah, but we're paying a lot of taxes. Yeah. You should really account for that.
Yeah, I think that will be a good clickbait title for me as well. The growth is very high. I think 100%, like you said, 1.5 to 2x, which is almost 50 to 100% increment after promotion. That's something which is like very, very high.
It's high,
It's not usually with any other company. I mean, I know my friends who are working in different companies. Promotion भी होता है तो 30, 40%, 30 भी नहीं, 25, 30%. And in like normal year, it's 10% year on year. So I think 50 to 100 is like very, very
And the
high.
base is also big, right? It's not
Yeah,
really that you're
exactly.
saying 10 lakhs and then 1.5, 2x
Right.
of that. Like you're multiplying on
Right.
top of a really high number.
Correct. How are you feeling after not getting such a high amount in your bank account every month?
Very
end?
scary. Very, very scary.
I mean, how is it for you?
Uh,
And plus, I mean, you're used to staying in hotels like ITC, Marriott,
Yeah.
और क्या क्या बोले थे? Westin, Trident. Now, of
now
course,
I
I
have
know
to
you
go
can
to
afford.
Agoda. No, now I have to go to Agoda and sort cheapest.
Or maybe
Yes.
Oyo, is it?
Or maybe. Those days are not far away.
I'm just kidding. Of course, you can afford all these places, I'm sure. But how are you feeling, honestly?
I think, of course, I mean, it was a difficult decision. It's not easy to say, move on from one of the top consulting firms.
Right. It's been what, 20 days you've quit?
Yeah.
Right.
30th June. Yeah, 30th June.
Oh, 30th June, I also quit my job at Aditya Birla Group, by the way. So I think 30th June is like...
I hope I also
good
follow the trajectory and make similar amounts.
I'm not making anything.
This is lucky. But I think it was a difficult decision to start off with. That, do I really... am I really sure about it? But it just felt like, I had enough buffer created for myself over the last couple of years, and then I thought that I owe it to myself to probably take risks for a few months, years, whatever comes ahead, which is what gave me more conviction that yes, I have to move on. It's definitely a setback that you have to slowly control your expenses that you wouldn't think of first, right? I mean, more often than not, which again I promote, I mean, I have traveled by local trains all my life. But when I was with consulting firms, that was one habit that I continued to slowly let go of, right? That, okay, it's okay to travel once a while in cab, fine. But now, you're making those conscious decisions that, no, I mean, if I can save some amount, if I can put that back into what I'm really working for, so why not, right? So it's those smaller decisions of changing your lifestyle habits, your spending habits. But I think it's good. It's exciting.
So have you decided what business you want to start, or you're thinking?
No, I have decided. There are 2 ideas that I'm working with.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll
Very nice.
talk more about it.
Yeah, sure,
soon.
definitely. Yeah. All the best to you for that.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the interview preparation, guys. Here, like a lot of people would be willing to understand how do you prepare for these interviews and what kind of questions, what kind of cases are asked to you. It's like a completely different kind of an interview. It's not like a normal interview where interviewer is asking you question. You have to ask a lot of questions to the interviewer in this kind, right? So if you can explain how can people prepare, what are some of the resources they can use, and how can people crack interviews in these companies. By the way, before that, maybe these guys are also taking a course called Management Consulting Case Interview Preparation at KGAR. So we're organizing that next weekend, so 29th, 30th July and 5th and 6th of August. So if you're someone who's really looking for taking some guidance from both of them, who have been like industry stalwarts according to me in the consulting industry, like definitely register for this course, and they're going to teach you everything about the types of cases and everything, and recordings will also be given to those who are not able to like attend the same due to some unforeseen circumstances. So if you can just help people understand about their interview preparation journeys, that'll be helpful.
Sure. So, I mean, there's again two different pathways here.
Just before that, sorry. So you guys would be involved in the recruiting part as well. Like you would have been involved, right? So because you have like 4 or 5 years of experience, I'm sure you were involved in it. So I think it's the perfect to listen from the both of you.
So I mean, let me just explain how the process works, right? So say for chartered accountants is what I was looking at closely. So say whenever a CA final results are out, so that is when recruitment kickstarts for I think both and maybe in McKinsey as well. We would kind of invite applications through resumes, and people would send in. Usually these are one-pager resumes. Once after the deadline of the resumes is done, we would take about say 2 weeks to shortlist those and release a shortlist out of the resumes that had come here. From that point on, those are the people that who are still in the fray. They would then get say about a month and a half of time to prepare. This is for chartered accountants or say even engineers, maybe a little bit different. But this is because chartered accountants don't have the habit of going through these type of case interviews. So this 1 month, 1.5 months is essentially the prep time for everyone, right? During this, each person is assigned one person from the firm who ideally is a CA also, who went through that same process. They would guide the people applying. Like I was Kushal's buddy, so I was already in BCG and Kushal was applying. So that's how typically it would happen. And then there would be say 1 or 2 days over which the interviews would happen, and at the end of that period, you would kind of get to know whether you're in or out. Roughly, this is the process. Now, the prep time ideally starts once you get shortlisted, but nothing stops you from starting to prepare even before, right? Usually, what we tell people who are applying is there are certain books, case interview prep books. One was Case Interviews Cracked, which I really like, and I think that is very good for someone who's just starting off. Like it explains a lot of concepts from the basics and really kind of simulates how an interview would look like. Then there's one other called Case in Point, which is more from a Western geography, which is written from someone who was in the US, I think. And it has more niche kind of industries. So that is also good if you want to learn about those niche industries. Broadly, if you're done with these 2 books, I think you're good to go in terms of knowing the theory of what all you can expect. But what is crucial is actually doing the practice with someone in person or virtually, whatever works. But it's really important for people to practice rather than just read a book and think to themselves, because a lot of the decisioning on whether you get hired, whether you get selected is more in terms of how do you communicate, how articulate you are, how do you come across in terms of knowing industry basics, etc. That doesn't come to you just by reading. It might come to you, but it also you also need to kind of communicate it back. Now that is something people are not really used to because of their journeys or where they are. This is not something they've done in the past. So this is where the practice helps. So say one person, as in I could ask you, could give you a case study, and then you would then have to think and identify what information do you need. So you would then have to ask me questions. do you have, say, if
Just
I
give an
give you
example, yeah,
if
give
I
an
give you a, say, a profitability case, you're supposed to figure out why profitability of a client is going down. Say that client is in the automotive industry. So then you have to think of what are the possible reasons that this might have happened, and then what information you would need to either prove or disprove that reason. We call those reasons as hypotheses. You need to be very structured. You can't be very random that, okay, I think because Maruti has launched a new variant, your sales are down. That can't be a way you start. Right? So you have to be very structured. You have to think of, has the demand gone down? Are there supply issues? Then at the demand level, then you would think of what are the possible reasons. Are prices increased? Is there a change in product? Is there a new competition product that has come in? So on and so forth. So this whole kind of thought process is what you need to work on while you do the preparation. And as many cases that you're able to do, this is what you can keep refining. It's not natural for us to do this because nowhere in our curriculum as chartered accountants are we expected to do this. So this is a bit of a learning curve, but the process is really fun. Like at least that's what I felt when I was going through as a candidate, and even when I usually help other candidates come in. So it's really fun.
Yeah.
And it's very interactive, and even the interviews are going to be like this. So it's better you interact and get used to it, so that the interview doesn't feel like an interview essentially.
Correct. Apurva,
And yeah, I mean, very well explained. The entire idea of why case interviews or interviews for consulting are different to those that you would usually have, right? Usually you would have interviews where they would assess your fit, how your resume is, what your journey is, what's the potential fitment. Might also go for some aptitude tests, might ask you some quiz questions, etc. The entire reason of why it's case interviews here is to understand how you would act if you were given a problem statement, right? Because consulting is full of problem statements. Now, a client will come to you, and as Vatsal pointed out, right, there's a profitability issue. A client will just literally come to you that we have a profitability issue. We have an EBITDA issue that we are running at probably like 6% right now, and then why are we not at 10? Competition is at 10, and we need to go from 6 to 10. Now, for you to be able to solve that, you need to very well understand what are the drivers of low EBITDA or high EBITDA. Why are we low versus competition being high? We need to very well know that. And hence, through these case interviews, the interviewer is assessing a couple of your capabilities, right? Your critical thinking, that how well, how deep can you go? Also assessing your quant skills, that can you make quick math calculations at the back of your hand, and you don't really need a pen and a paper or a calculator to do that, because in situations where you're in front of the CEO and then you have to do this quick math, you can't really be saying that, wait, let me grab my calculator or let me grab my Excel and then I'll quickly calculate it for you, right? So it's also to assess that. It's also to assess your soft skills, that how do you come across as a senior, across a senior person, right? That if you are thrown a problem, if you're thrown a question that you have no fucking clue about, right? I mean, bleep this out. But
it's fine.
that you have no clue about, and that very usually happens, right? That, oh, I did not see that coming. Like something just hit me. That so how do you still come across it? Did your face tone go down? Yeah. Did you suddenly start acting nervous? Did you start blabbering? Did you start?
It's so granular, is it?
It's really granular, right? Wow. It's really those small things that the interviewer will notice about you. That how do you crack under pressure? How much can you sustain? And hence case interviews just serve as a very good medium to assess some of these quintessential consulting skills.
Right. So I'll tell you the reason I started laughing. So this guy was my buddy, okay? Now I'll tell you. He used to call me at 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. to do a case. Once in, I think thrice a week. He's been very kind enough. I think we did almost 15, 20 cases, or even more than that. I don't remember. One fine night, 10 p.m. So I always used to get scared. इसका वत्सल मन यार आया ना यार, इसका कॉल आ गया यार. मतलब मेरा ऐसा हमेशा ये था कि यार shit यार, मेरे को डर लग रहा है अभी, क्या पूछ लेगा आज केस में, पता नहीं है. One fine day, 10 बजे रात को कॉल आता है, बोलते कुशल चलो let's do a case. मैं बोला ओके चलो डन, पेपर पेन रेडी है. बोलते estimate the number of poha particles in a plate while having breakfast. मैं बोला भाई क्या पूछ रहा है यार, ये क्या मतलब,
मुझे तो सिर्फ खाने आता है, गिनना भी था क्या?
लिटरली पहले तो मैं समझा नहीं. I was like, what are you saying? मतलब, are you okay? I was like, what? Can you repeat the question? He's like, estimate the number of poha particles in a plate. तो मैं बोला, which particles? पोहा. तो सुबह नाश्ते में पोहा खाता है ना, तो इसके particles कितने होते हैं एक प्लेट में? I was like, oh my god, क्या पूछ लिया यार इसने. फिर इसने बताया कि कैसे करना, मतलब volume of a plate, volume of a particle, dividing वगैरह. He has asked me like the most weirdest question, question. मतलब, estimate the number of golf balls in air in India right now. मतलब, these are questions which are asked in your typical interviews as well. So मतलब मेरे को तो इतना डर लगता था ना, इसलिए I started laughing कि I can resonate. एक बार मेरी ऐसी फट गई थी, इसने मेरे को इन्फिनिटी मॉल बुलाया था. So he like we caught up वहाँ पे I think इन्फिनिटी में, मलाड में, हाँ. तो वहाँ पे बुलाया था, मैं अंदर ही रहता था, और वहाँ पे मैं तो बहुत डर गया था तभी. इसको मिलने बुला रहा है मेरे को. तो वहाँ पे इसने 2 केसेस करवाए थे मेरे, और मैं एक बार बीच में मैं स्टक हो गया था 1-2 मिनट के लिए, कुछ कर नहीं पा रहा था. ऐसा वियर्ड एक्सप्रेशन बनाया था सामने मेरे बैठ के. सेम व्हेन यू सेड नो दे आर टेस्टिंग वेदर यू आर नर्वस, वेदर यू आर दिस, आई कुड लिटरली इमेजिन यार ये तो बंदे ने वही किया है मेरे साथ लिटरली.
They do that. No, it's Vatsal is just preparing you for
Yeah. No, all like jokes aside, but like he's been like one of the best mentors, honestly.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I can resonate to it. Maybe if you can just help, what type of questions you were asked in your interviews, and maybe 2-3 मिनट में कैसे आंसर किया था तुम लोगों ने, वो सही होगा.
Sure. I can start. I mean, and I'll start with a more difficult one. Now, for one of my Bain interviews only, I was asked a case where we were working, like the Bain was working for a client which is a completely dead industry, right? It's a sugar company. And sugar ka value chain usually works in a way that, you have sugar cane. Sugar cane se you have, you remove the sugar, then there's molasses, jisse alcohol aata hai, and then there is, the molasses are used to generate power. So it's a 3-pronged chain. All the 3 government regulated, right? Sugar, very well government regulated, alcohol, of course, and power, so it's a state-owned distribution. Now, such a client comes up to us and says that we want to accelerate our revenues. And what do we do, right? Where do we find new avenues of growth? Now, it's a very tricky situation because all of the 3 industries that you see are very well stagnated, if not like that. You can't see a crazy double-digit growth, right? Sugar, double-digit growth, you can't, right? You can't assume that people will just start having more sugar at some point of time. Same for alcohol. I mean, looks like people are having more and more, but you can't really assume that at a macro level, or even power. Now, in such a situation, for you to navigate that, we are not just looking at a traditional case, but we are looking at a more holistic view that in my value chain, are there any disruptions that I can eventually come in with? And eventually the answer to it was that, you look at alcohol and then you integrate backwards. So you are you're making alcohol right now out of the sugar cane. But what you can also do is you become a bottler for some of these soft drink companies, if not alcoholic companies, right? So you set up a factory, you have alcohol, don't supply the spirits, but make the alcohol in-house for them, and then eventually move to soft drinks as well because you have bottling capabilities, right? So it's really thinking broad. It's going, there is no one there is no one path that you have to go. That this is the way I'm going to find an answer. It's not, right? It can literally be all dimensions, and you have to be open to.
Oh, wow. So this was asked you in your interview?
Yeah, it was asked in my interview.
Any guesstimate you were asked in your interview?
Yeah, I was, not guesstimates per se, but I was asked to size the market of some industry. Now I don't remember.
Got it.
Market sizing ka tha. Guesstimates.
And just before we move on to you, Vatsal, for your interview questions, इसमें अभी, for example, let's say you said that companies like BCG, McKinsey, Bain, or many consulting companies charge rupees 2 to 3 crores per month to these clients. Is it driven through, let's say, अगर इनका advice काम नहीं आया, is it variable based, or is it like नहीं अभी ये तो करना ही है, अगर advice लेना है तो लो, नहीं लेना है तो मत लो? How does that happen?
So now consulting firms, more and more consulting firms are moving to this model where a large part of their fees will be variable, if not all of it. Earlier, traditionally, it used to be completely fixed that we are in an advisory role. We'll give you advice with a disclaimer that, it's the risk doesn't lie with us, right? That's typically how a consulting firm will operate, that we'll advise you, but it's not really our risk. Now, considering the macro situation, considering the client needs, more and more clients also want consultants to have skin in the game, which is where variable can go as high as, you're just, like one of the cases that I recently did, just I think Bain charged less than 1 crore, but a large part of their fee was variable driven.
So variable dependent on what?
results, right?
No,
if you
results as in
promised
revenue or...
Yeah, so let
be
me
anything.
explain. So there's two different types of projects broadly that we spoke about earlier. So say strategy and say implementation, right? So implementation, if your aim is to reduce cost, right? So at the start of the project there would be a target, reduce cost from so to so.
Okay.
So in those cases, there are more and more variable cases there. So if you are able to reduce cost, your target was 100. If you are able to reduce 80, so you would get some percentage of that 80.
Okay.
Now it could also be
80 or 20?
no, as in you reduced 80. Your
Achha, you reduced
reduction
80.
target was 100.
Okay.
You reduced 80, so you get 80.
Okay, got it.
I mean, whatever you reduce is
Percentage of
what you get.
percentage. Got it.
I mean, it could be a flat percentage, it could be a slab-based
हाँ,
percentage.
मतलब
that
पहले अगर कॉस्ट कंपनी की 100 होगी अभी
हाँ.
सपोज 20 हो गई है मतलब
तो
80 से
80
कम
you
है तो ये
reduce.
80 का
So
तुमको
80
certain
का you
percentage
get, but
मिलेगा.
उसमें भी there are different structures to say first 30 crore you only get 10%.
Okay,
Because that is very easy to do.
समझ गया.
Then next 20 crore you get say 15%. Then last का 20% if you still are able to do you get 20 or 30 or whatever.
समझ
that
गया.
is.
Fair.
So that is what happens in terms of implementation case, for example. So one is profitability, other could be revenue. Again, that is all
Right.
measurable, right? So
समझ गया.
if you're able to increase revenue by whatever percentage, उसका some percentage.
No, but again, it's very subjective, right? Revenue बड़ा होगा वो कंपनी का, but how do they allocate कि हाँ तुम्हारे एडवाइस से ही इतना बड़ा है?
That is not
difficult, right?
really. I mean, if the companies, as in the consulting firms, have worked on a certain area, whatever happens in that area is attributed to that. So you can't really separate out how much because of the company versus how much because of the client itself. Because in the end, it's more of that these companies will tell the clients and the
Because
people
the
on
client
the
is
ground to do
involved.
a certain way.
The client is involved in everything.
It's not like
So,
consultants will go and start selling those
fair.
things, right? So
but you do that sometimes.
we do that sometimes.
You
we do that sometimes when things are not moving. We do that sometimes to show as an example that please do it like this. Yeah, we do it sometimes, but broadly not. So then that is one type of that is clean, right? The other one which is on strategy. Now, how do you make that variabilized or have consulting firms have skin in the game? So what is happening more and more is these are not standalone strategy projects. There will be strategy phase and then there will be implementation phase. Whatever you defined as strategy, now please help us implement. So then in that case you can have certain fee linked on the implementation. What is happening right now, I don't see another way to make strategy also variabilized, because in the end it's that please do this now.
Correct.
At that point, how do you decide whether this would succeed or not? You only know in the future. So
Fair.
these are the two broad structures.
No, makes sense. Perfect. So let's go back to you now. What were your interview questions
So-
and how did you tackle them?
So my first interview was really interesting. So the interviewer came, what industry do you want to do, right? What case do you want to do? So he gave me three options. He gave me insurance, he gave me sports, and he gave me music. So I am a very big sports fan, right?
Which sport do you play?
I play cricket, I play football, I watch F1, I watch tennis, I watch...
How do you get so much time?
I mean, it's not like I watch all of it. Most could be highlights. But
I'm just kidding.
But,
the tables have turned. I'm pulling your leg because you have pulled my leg. I think three years back. It's way back. Yeah, go ahead.
So out of the three, I said sports. So then he said, okay, now I know what you like, so I'm not going to ask you that. And then you were like, oh shit, what happened? Now I'm going to get something which I really don't want. And I mean, it was not like that, but I got to do insurance, right? So the case then was that the client, which is an insurance company, is losing market share from their online business.
Okay.
This is the problem statement. I was supposed to figure out why is this happening.
Okay.
So, I mean, I was just become a CA, had worked in tax all my life before that during articles. So, I mean, no head or tail about insurance at all. So, then what I had to do was think like a consumer. Like if you were buying insurance and you would go our generation, first thing we do is go online and see what is available, etc. So, that is the mindset then what I use. So, I broke it down into say process, as in from nothing to coming to the website. Then while I'm on the website, how easy it is for me to kind of break or make the decision. And then once I've made the decision, how easy it is to check out or get the insurance and do the payment and things like that. So these three broad buckets, and then you think of possible reasons in these and say compare it with what others are doing.
Correct.
So in the first phase, there could be things like the website isn't great. I can't find information where it should be. I can't find it easily. So then, why would someone still stay on the website? They would just kind of go back and go to some other. Those could be possible reasons. Second could be while you are making the decision. Again, in terms of the information that is displayed, that premium and this much sum assured, these are the terms and conditions, not really visible, or there are like hundreds of policies. I don't know which one I want. So becoming too confusing. So I'll just go out. So that is one other thing. And then third, which is in terms of checkout. I mean, you then see how much documentation is that portal asking. Are there any technical issues? Does it support all payment gateways, etc., etc. Then there is one other angle which I did not consider initially, but the interviewer kind of helped me and pointed me towards it. Like that also happens. The interviewers also help. They also want you to do well. If you're doing it well initially, and if you miss some part, they'll help you and they'll steer you in that way. So there it was more on, okay, what about the third party websites? Say, which one is there?
Bazaar.
Policy Bazaar. So what is happening there? How do you know? How do you check that? So then after he asked me that, then I said, please give me 2 minutes and I'll figure out, I'll think of how to do that. So this is broadly how my first interview went. I mean, I didn't know how I did, but apparently I did.
And what are the other three?
You got in.
Yeah, of course you got in. So you've done well. What are the other three questions? Don't answer them, but I mean the questions which you were asked, the cases.
The cases, right? Yeah. So I had two others. So one was in terms of supply chain strategy for a consumer appliances player. So it's a white goods company. Say think of fridge, washing machine, etc. And they are running to capacity on their current plant. Now they have to put in another plant because they expect growth in the future. So where should they put that plant in? So what are the factors you consider and how do you kind of come to that decision? That was one. And the third one, I only had three. So the third one was that the client is a tractor company. It is losing market share. Again, figure out why. So similar to the insurance, but a different industry altogether. So there's nothing online here. It's you then have to think of, okay, if you ever went and bought a car, what was your experience? How did that industry work? So that is what you relate to this kind of case and say, okay, this is how I think it works. Now, am I missing something? So
and this was online in 2017, right?
This
so it wasn't as cool as it is right now. It's not as intuitive.
Is it like people who clear their interviews in 3 rounds are overachievers? Is that the case?
I think generally you clear it in 3, maximum 4 rounds.
No, I've seen people in 4 or 5 rounds.
So during when I was interviewing, the typical structure was you get 2 rounds for sure. Then you get a third. If they need one more to decide for you, then you get a fourth.
So basically, people who are doing their 4th round are like the confused, like they are the ones who are not.
Could be, or it could also be that they're just getting conflicting reads from multiple people.
Got it.
So then there's one more round for you.
Got it.
But I mean, in consulting, you can never say in terms of rounds. So when I was also interviewing, there were 2 people who had 4. One got selected, one got rejected. So you can never tell.
Yeah, makes sense. Maybe what would be fun is that we can do a mock interview between the 2 of you, where one can be an interviewer and the other one can be an interviewee. So we can record that separately. And guys, that video would be available on Kager's YouTube channel. You can just click on the link given in the description box, and you can also click on the link given in the description box for the management consulting case interview preparation course. So if you're someone who's like interested, just click on the link and register for these courses as well. So thank you so much. This was super fun. One last thing before we conclude, right? So this is like a question which I ask every guest of mine. And this is a tricky one. Maybe I don't know who would want to go first, but yeah, individually to each one of you. So if you are in the shoes of Kushal and if you are interviewing Vatsal and Apurva in this podcast, what is that one question you would like to ask him towards the end of the interview?
That is an interesting one.
That is tricky.
I
think since we are doing consulting, one question that people usually, and this is like this is more for what Apurv would want to let the audience know, per se, right? So, people are really enthusiastic about consulting, right? And consulting is a dream job for most people. But what people generally miss out on is this the end game? Is this something that I will eventually continue to do, or is this just a short-term thing, right? The answer to that, of course, that I would say is consulting is good to start off with. Consulting will give you a lot of avenues, a lot of exit opportunities, a lot of perspective, etc. But to me, it's not necessarily the end game, right? Because of 10 people who come in at the entry level, only one makes partner, right? So that tells you that 9 people are doing something else. And while it's important for you to think that consulting is a great way to start your career and have perspective, that's not the end game, and you have to, of course, use consulting as a tool to understand what is it that you really want to do.
Correct.
In life, right? I mean, some become influencers, some try to be founders. There was just a recent stat by McKinsey and Bain, both of them, right? That 10% of their alums are now founders.
Oh wow.
So some of
you
these...
are in this 10% now.
Yeah, I mean, that was before before I left. But yeah, so I think
next
that's
report
important.
will have a higher number.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm a minuscule, can't sway results, can't sway results. But
So
I
probably
think that's
next report
important.
will have the valuation of these founders, like companies, and that will be higher because of this guy. Yeah,
Of course,
yeah.
of course.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I think that's something that
So what are the exit opportunities for consultants?
typically multifold, right? So you can get into
One would be
investing.
private equity, venture
Yeah,
capital.
so investing
That's the
is
one,
private equity, venture capital, right? Usually people also get into corporate strategy roles. So with large corporates, they have an in-house strategy division, a strategy wing. So you become an in-house strategy consultant with them. More and more people are going for startups now. You go for founders office roles, CEO's office roles. Very well, I mean, depending upon the level that you are at, but you will more often than not at a Series A, Series B funded company get a very good role, a chief of staff or founder -1 sort of a role, which is a great exposure, right? That people might want to have. Some become founders, some
go to an MBA.
some absolutely. There are people who come in as chartered accountants undergrads who go for global MBA. Yes, Indian MBA is always an option, but more often than not, people go to the top B schools,
Right.
top 5, top 10 globally. So people also do that.
So, to add to what he said, I've also seen people go to social impact kind of roles from consulting. So, if you're very passionate about doing not-for-profit work or helping the society in general, there are roles available to say consultants, where with say Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation,
Okay.
those kind of not-for-profits, or it could also be a new not-for-profit that is just coming up. So, I myself worked on a secondment on a university, Laksha University, which was a greenfield university.
What is secondment?
Secondment is while I am contracted to BCG, I will go and do day-to-day work with the client. So instead of the whole team, it's just me who's going there, and I've become part of that organization for part of that contract period.
You are on the payroll of BCG, but you are like
I'm
part
working
of
with
that.
the other organization broadly, and I mean I don't kind of report to say anyone at BCG for that kind of timeline. So while I was there was one other person from BCG, but I mean virtually moved to this organization itself, and like for them it was very they were very motivated to help go from 0 to 1 that new kind of not-for-profit. So it depends on how you've bought into that mission of that. Then there's other, I would say there's geography change options, like if you are able to land a different, within BCG or McKinsey or Bain, if you're able to go to a different country and work there. So that could, I mean there's temp transfer, there's permanent transfer, temporary or permanent, depending on what you're able to get and what the demand conditions are. So yeah, I think those are the two additional ones on what.
Got it. Cool, let's go back to the question.
So I mean, I would have asked if someone was to get into consulting, what are the 3 or 4 reasons that they should, and what are the things that they should be mindful of that they need to give that to get something out of it.
Got it.
So for me, I mean broadly I see consulting as something which gives you broad exposure. You can go into any industry, learn any particular sub-industry within that, whatever interests you. So my experience of Big Four in India was, once I got in, I was just placed into one particular department while I was asked where do you want to go, but I mean, at say 18, 19, 20 years of age, how would you know what I want to do? So yeah, I selected something, but then I was just confined to that particular industry sector, that particular functional area. But in consulting, it's more like you are on a project, you are doing something. On the next project, you could be doing something completely different. So, say for example, in one case I worked with a Hindustan Unilever, for example, that kind of a company. The case after that, I was working with the government of India. Now, how do you go from this to there without much friction? That is something really cool that I would think that gives you. So, if you are someone who gets irritated, bored with monotonous work, this is something for you broadly. Like, I have not done one piece of repeat work in 5 years. Versus that in articleship, I used to do the same work 2 years apart. Right? So this is something really, really cool. The other thing is in terms of getting to dictate your own or make decisions on the work that you're supposed to do and form point of views. Say in corporates or big fours, my experience had been that you are typically expected to do the work in meetings. Maybe if you have points to add, then you add. But otherwise, broadly, the partner or your manager, senior manager would cover most of the things with the client. Here, it's the other way around. Here, if you are doing a particular piece of work, you are supposed to be the person who gives the most points about it or talk the most about it. Because you've done the work essentially, not your senior. So that shift is very difficult or a huge learning curve for people who switch. So this just really makes you feel that yes, I am doing the work and I am being the expert here and I am being respected for it. So someone who kind of wants to drive their own decisions, own work, this is what it gives, and I think that doing this over multiple projects is what then gives you kind of confidence that yes, I can start something of my own now.
Right.
Because I've done so much work, I have confidence that I can figure it out. So
correct.
That is something that really trains you, sets you up well. Now I would say the flip side to this, why if you're getting this, what you need to be mindful of is, yes, there will be long hours, because without putting in the effort, you're not going to learn on your own, on your normal hours. And it's not a 9 to 6 job in any stretch of in any imagination.
No, I think it's 9 to 6, but 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. probably, not 6 p.m.
We don't do 6 a.m.
No, it's not a private equity. Yeah.
So yes, there will be effort that you need to put in, and if you put in that effort, so then yeah, you will get the rewards for it as well.
Right. How many flights you would have taken in the last 1 year, both of you? Any idea?
Well, so after COVID, it's not been that much.
Before, let's say 2018.
Before COVID, so it used to be 2 flights a week average. Right? So one Monday you go, Friday you come back. Some weeks it would be you've gone on Monday, Wednesday you come back, then you've gone again on Friday morning, come back Friday evening. But that's usually Thursday holiday and then Friday there's a big meeting or things like that. So
150 flights per year.
Yeah, if you're on travel cases back to back, but they also kind of give you that flexibility that if you've done travel for 9 months, then for 3 more months they'll put you in the same city you're in if it's say a metro city at least.
Right.
So,
but now I
say on average 50 to 100 is not difficult.
I think, but you're sorted for your honeymoon, right? Because your travel, your stay, everything will be.
Yeah, like you said.
Are you guys married, by the way?
No.
Well, how old are you?
I'm 28.
28, and you?
I don't 28 this year.
Okay, same age. Got it. So, nice, amazing. So it was very candid and very super cool talking to both of you. Thank you so much for doing this. I hope I could do justice to your time, and it was super fun recording this with you. Thank you so much for taking out time.
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.